Hey, welcome back. I'm excited to give you this segment. We're going to do a Q&A about abortion, which is a controversial topic. Um, Stay tuned. Please just have an open mind and get all the information in this video. Uh, I'm going to answer common questions, 2 questions on abortion. If you are pregnant and you're facing an unplanned pregnancy, do not fear. Help is on the way. Here's a great phone number to call. I called it personally. Very helpful. If you need help, there's help available. Call area code 877 398 7734. Once again, that's area code 877 398 7734 for immediate assistance. Here's some medical facts. Uh, did you know that at 18 days, a baby's heart begins to beat? At 6 weeks, a baby's brain coordinates movements and responds to touch. And here's all the different stages right here. At 8 weeks, here's a baby about 8 weeks. The baby's organs are functioning at 8 weeks. At 10 weeks, a baby can sense and feel pain, can sense touch as well. At 12 weeks, a baby can smile, suck his or her thumb, and make a fist at 3 months pregnancy, at 12 weeks. Here's a really good booklet. If you'd like some really good information, you can go to Catholic Answers and you can get this little booklet on abortion. So please go to Catholic Answers for more information. Any scientific or medical textbook will confirm what every doctor should know, that a baby's life begins at the moment of conception, not at birth. And now with modern AI, you can actually solve the debate. Watch this. Okay, Google, is a fetus a human being? In recent years, modern medicine has revealed the truth about unborn babies, overwhelmingly confirming that an unborn baby is human. It's right there. AI will tell you. It's not up for debate anymore. A person's life does not depend on what stage of development it is in. Right here, here's the stages of development. At conception, you have a zygote, okay? Then an embryo, then a fetus, then an infant after birth, an adolescent, still developing, teenagers are still developing, a young adult, and then you have middle age, and then a senior citizen. So all during life, we're in some stage of development. So it doesn't make you more human or less human based on what stage of development you're in. If you need an abortion pill reversal, please call area code 877 588 0333. Unfortunately, the abortion pill is killing millions of babies. That's one of the most popular methods today to end a life. Let's say you've had an abortion and need hope and healing. Let's say you're upset about it. Forgiveness is available. If you need counseling, there's counseling available. You can call the Diocese of Orange at area code 1-800-722 4356. Once again, 1-800-722 4356 for counseling. Here are some medical risks which appear on the consent form at an abortion provider's office. So this is what's on the consent form you have to sign. Death, sterility, potential for infection, damage to your uterus, damage of uterus, and possible hysterectomy as a result of injury and of complication. Here's this poor gal here. Her name is Alexis Arguello, who had an abortion and ended up dying soon thereafter, after getting an abortion at Planned Parenthood from the complications from her abortion. So we pray for Alexis and her child. Most abortion providers are in the business of aborting babies. That's their business, right? They don't provide ultrasound in many, many, many cases to the pregnant mother prior to the abortion being performed, out of fear that the pregnant mother will have a change of heart and cancel the abortion. So they don't provide the mother that's in an emotional time with all the information. Abortion is encouraged as the only remedy. No other alternatives are provided, such as adoption, for example. Abortion providers are for-profit organizations and make money on abortions, not recommending adoption or choosing to keep the baby to the mother. Many women may experience an increased risk of miscarriage after an abortion or during an abortion, future abortions, trouble sleeping, flashbacks, extreme guilt, depression, thoughts of suicide, grief, anger, low self-esteem, and problems with bonding with future children, and even having withdrawal problems from relationships. And you'll notice, like on a March for Life, you'll see women that have a sign that say, "I regret my abortion." The one thing that's not shared with a pregnant woman at an abortion care provider is, the potential mental stress and grief and trauma from going through of an abortion. And many women later are just traumatized that their maternal instinct and the loss of their child that their choice for abortion caused them. They just suffer tremendously. So please, if you've had an abortion, please contact the Catholic Church at 1-800-722-4356. We're here to help you heal. Before making a pregnancy decision, I strongly urge you to get an ultrasound. There are free ultrasounds available. You can call Obria Medical Clinics at 714-516-9045 for a free ultrasound and counseling. And they provide diapers, food for the child, and options for putting the baby up for adoption. There's lots of resources available if you choose adoption. Here's a story about a personal friend from high school. His name is Chris. So what happened to Chris, he's around 50 years old now, maybe a little over 50, when he was he was put up for adoption. So he grew up with a stepmother who adopted him, lived his adult life, and in his mid-40s, he did one of those DNA tests. And a friend of his is kind of like a guru about DNA testing and was actually able to trace my friend Chris back to his original mother who lived in Wisconsin. So the story is that my friend Chris's real father, biological father, did not want to have Chris's mother have the baby, have my friend Chris. He wanted strongly for his girlfriend at the time to get an abortion, and his mother, my friend Chris's mother, just could not do it. So she actually left Wisconsin, came out to California, and put Chris up for adoption. So years later, my friend Chris actually got to go to Wisconsin, meet his biological mother, and his biological father was still alive, and they were able to be reconciled. And his biological father that wanted to abort my friend Chris actually met the son that he wanted to abort, and they ended up reconciling. And a couple years ago, my friend Chris's biological father ended up passing away, but he was able to meet the son that he wanted to have aborted. Total miracle. Let's answer some common questions about abortion. What is abortion? Well, people who believe abortion should be legal, we say that abortion is the termination of a pregnancy. Now, I was not always pro-life. I remember maybe in my late teens, early 20s, before I had a spiritual awakening and came back to the church, I really didn't want to see a picture. I remember my mom tried to show me of a picture of what an abortion looked like, and I just didn't want to see it. And there's some pro-life people that they'll put a picture of what an abortion looks like, and a lot of times they're met with vitriol, anger, rage from people, and really they're put up to a lot of abuse. So, I wasn't at that level of rejecting life, but I really just had a closed mind. I really didn't want to know. Let's put it that way. And I think that's the position that a lot of people are. They just really don't want to know what the truth is about what an abortion is and what it does. Here's another picture right here. Human then, there's an embryo or fetus, and human now. Human then and human now. People who believe abortion should be legal believe that abortion is the killing of a baby or a person. People who believe that abortion should be illegal believe that the baby, the fetus, the embryo is a human being. The Catholic Church, what we believe is that life begins at conception. That at the moment of conception, God gives that person a soul. It's a medical fact that an unborn baby has its own DNA. It's not part of the mother, it's in the mother. It has its own brain, its own heart, its own DNA. The popular argument, it's my body, it's my choice, but the baby is not technically your body. It's in your body, but it's not your body. It's an individual human being. Also, there's a scripture verse, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, and God says, before you were formed in the womb, I knew you. So we believe that God has a plan for every human being that is born into this world. And if you're struggling with keeping your baby or not, just know that, if you don't have a strong faith, just say, okay, God, help me. And he's going to provide help. He never will bring a life into the world without a plan. So whether you put your baby up for adoption or decide to keep your baby, just know it may not be easy, but he's going to provide for you and you're going to be okay. The ancient Christian document called the Didache was written in the 1st century. It's over 2,000 years old. It's one of the most ancient Christian documents outside of Scripture. Says in the Didache, quote, "You shall not murder a child by abortion, nor kill a child at birth." One of the 10 commandments says, "Thou shalt not kill." Abortion is a mortal sin for those who participate or assist in an abortion. So it's a grave matter. If you are Catholic and have had an abortion or have assisted in an abortion, please go to confession as soon as possible and receive forgiveness. I would suggest to please give your child a name if you're a mother who has had an abortion or a father of of a child that has been aborted, to give your child a name and begin a spiritual relationship with your child. It's part of the healing process. If you've aborted your child, please begin a spiritual relationship with your aborted child, and begin the healing process today. Here's a question, Q&A. Is a fetus only a clump of cells? That's a common objection, that it's only a clump of cells. Well, this unscientific argument by some is made by those that are in favor of abortion, and it's not scientific. What kind of cells, you got to ask yourself, is an embryo or a fetus? What species is a clump of cells? It's part of the human species. Another common argument is made. It states that an embryo or fetus is not conscious of the outside world, therefore terminating an embryo, fetus, clump of cells. Some even refer to a fetus as a parasite. I've heard that argument, saying that it's okay because it's inside the womb. The baby's inside the womb. Calling an embryo or a fetus a clump of cells is an outdated argument. That's like a 70s argument after the advent of ultrasound and modern science. Now we can see the baby that's early in its stages. We can see the baby moving at 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. We can see the baby responding to touch and pain. We can see the baby moving. We can see the baby sucking its thumb, stretching, some even yawn in the womb. We can see it. There's a movie called Dune. I don't know if you've watched the movie Dune. There's a couple of episodes. In the second episode of Dune, Dune Part 2, if you watch it, the mother prophetess in the movie is pregnant with a baby, and the baby's actually talking to the mother in Dune Part 2. One can argue that someone that is in a coma, if you take the argument that the baby's not conscious of the outside world, okay? Well, you could play the tape through. What about a person that's in a coma that is not conscious of the outside world? Do we have a right to just kill somebody that's in a coma? No. Why? Because it's a human being. Whether or not the embryo, fetus, or coma patient is conscious of the outside world does not take away the fact that it is a human being with a heartbeat. Would it be okay to terminate an Alzheimer person or dementia that is not cognizant of the outside world? No. Why? Because the person is a human being. Both a fetus and a coma patient are dependent on outside help, like a fetus or an embryo. And they deserve to live and not be killed. There's a famous murder case. I don't know if you've heard of the Scott Peterson case, but he was charged with like double murder because he murdered his pregnant wife, Lacey Peterson, and his son, which is named Connor. And that he was charged for murdering his pregnant wife and their son Connor. And he was given a name. Also, Planned Parenthood. Well, who founded Planned Parenthood? Well, Planned Parenthood was founded by a woman by the name of Margaret Sanger. And I recommend to research what she stood for. She was a supporter. She spoke at KKK meetings. She was a believer of eugenics, which the Nazis practiced eugenics, where they wanted to trim the population of undesirables, of minorities, of handicapped people, and the poor. In the Nazis did genocide on the Jewish people, and even killed gypsies. And Margaret Sanger, who was baptized as a Catholic, she forsook her childhood faith and abandoned any pretext of morality. She just threw all morality out. She gave herself over. She was married. She gave herself over to just reckless adultery. And she treated her first husband with extreme cruelty, gave very little attention to her children, and she just went wild, like, Girls Gone Wild, Margaret Sanger. And she was an avid promoter of abortion, birth control, and eugenics. She believed that large families were bad, like having minority populations were bad. She was really, I would say, a racist. You'll notice that Planned Parenthood and abortion providers, you know that 40% of abortions in the or black babies in the United States are aborted. 40% of black babies are aborted in the United States. 40% of the population, whereas our black community is only 15% of the American population, yet 40% are being aborted. It's a modern day genocide committed against minority communities and the poor. Down syndrome babies. It's a form of eugenics where the doctors, in many cases, are advising the parents. They get a test, ultrasound, and they'll tell the parents that your baby could have a birth defect, and they recommend to abort the Down syndrome baby. And that's another genocide on Down syndrome children. They're the most friendly, nice children, good people. They're so nice, and they're being slaughtered left and right through bad medical recommendations, in my opinion. Eugenics was at the core of Margaret Sanger's promoting birth control. Eugenics targets minorities. Eugenics was discredited as unscientific in the 20th century after eugenics doctrine was adopted by the Nazis to justify its treatment of Jews, disabled people, and minorities. Why would we borrow anything from Nazis and actually have that in our country? An abortion center is it's like a slaughterhouse. And the abortion doctor is kind of like a butcher, just slaughtering minorities. In my opinion. Eugenics was promoted by the Nazis, and Sanger was an admirer of Adolf Hitler, the founder of Planned Parenthood, an admirer of Adolf Hitler. And she praised the Nazis' birth control program. Eugenics is an ideology which seeks to eliminate from society anyone who is deemed an inferior race, or as Sanger called them, feeble-minded, morons, imbeciles, and idiots. That was her attitude towards minorities, the poor, the disabled. Terrible. Sanger edited a newspaper called Woman Rebel, in which she urged women to look to the world with a go-to-hell attitude. She described herself as belonging to a secret society of agnostics and atheists. In her 1932 Plan for Peace, Margaret Sanger identified her targets as blacks, Hispanics, American Indians, and Catholics. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, spoke at KKK events. That's a fact. Look it up. Eugenics was at the core of her reason to push birth control. No, it's off topic, but look what birth control has got us, okay? So we have the natural law, the way nature it was designed, we believe, by God, that he designed everything to work in order. So when we try to go around the natural law and say that you just have sex for the enjoyment, for the pleasure, we're having sex in the context of the natural order. It's supposed to produce offspring to populate heaven one day, right? So part of the marital act is an act of love to produce offspring. So when we want to take out of marriage, like Margaret Sanger believed, and have just sex for the gratification only, what happens, you try to get around nature by using birth control to stop procreation, and what happens? You end up having unwanted pregnancies, and then what happens is, in order to get rid of the unwanted pregnancy, abortion is being used as a form of birth control. And now we have millions of abortions. Look at these facts right here. 1.5 million babies are aborted in the United States every year. 1.5 million. 50 million people are aborted worldwide every year. Imagine all the people. And not only are you aborting the baby, all the future offspring. What if that baby would have been given life, got married, and had grandchildren and children? How many doctors, lawyers, mothers, fathers, professional NFL players like Micah Parsons, his mom, the famous defensive end in the NFL, his mother almost had aborted him, but a nun talked to the mother of this NFL player, Micah Parsons, and she decided to keep her baby, African American baby. She chose to keep him, and he became one of the best defensive ends in NFL history. Think about all the lost lives that we've lost. And now the consequences are coming because we have an aging population, and there's not enough young people that are working to pay taxes to support an aging population, because we're trying to get away from procreation and the natural law. It's creating a major disaster, especially in Europe and the United States. We're not having enough children. We need babies. Abortion is a modern day genocide perpetrated on minorities. Sanger arrogantly declared the marriage bed the most degenerating influence in the social order. For Sanger, release of sexuality from restriction from a married man and woman became a type of religious goal of hers. You can play her tape through, like she thought that was that her ideology was the right way to go. She ended up miserable. She ended up getting older. She had multiple relationships. She got an inheritance from her second husband and tried to have a bunch of parties to have young men give her attention. She ended up living all by herself in a nursing home care facility and just died miserable and alone. That was the end. That was her end. Whereas when we have children, the children are there to help the elderly parents and and take care of them when they're older. But she was alone. She was abandoned and lonely in the later stages of her life. As Sanger got older, she became depressed, and she turned to alcohol and spent her days sleeping as incoherent. And she, like I was telling you, attempted to throw party after party to fill an empty life, and tried to use this wealth she got from her second husband to attract younger men in order for her to feel desirable. And after, and she just blew through a lot of cash. Let's just put it that way. So Margaret Sanger ended up in a nursing home, miserable. That's where her best thinking got her. If pro-life people are correct, okay, there's binary, okay? Let's say pro-life people are correct and abortion kills an innocent human being, then keeping abortion legal will continue to kill millions of innocent people. So now when Roe v. Wade was overturned, the Supreme Court just merely said that the states have the right to, we can vote whether we want to keep abortion legal or not in each individual state. So now it's up to us to share with one another that unborn babies are humans, they're valuable, and to support pregnant women. If you're a man and you've gotten a woman pregnant, you need to support her, and you need to give her financial aid and emotional support, and not try to get out of your financial responsibility by telling her to have an abortion. You need to step up to the plate. We got to hold the men, the fathers of these babies, accountable. Step up and be a man. The fact that the fetus has its own DNA, soul, personality, and can feel pain is often denied or ignored by those who support abortion. So with the advances in medical technology, we know that the baby, the fetus, the embryo can feel pain. We know it. The baby, being a human being, is often cast aside in favor of terminating its life because the baby is an inconvenience or may alter the mother or father's life. 74% of women who abort their child say they can't afford a baby. 73%, I don't want to be a single mother. That's why, men, you got to stand up and be there, whether whether it was a one-night stand or whatever. You still need to stand up and support the mother, no matter what. Stand up, step up. Quite often, the deadbeat dad simply doesn't want to give financial support and encourages the mother to abort the baby just to get out of the financial responsibility. It's also important for family members to support the mother when a pregnancy occurs. In many cultures and families, a pregnancy outside of marriage is a big shame and an embarrassment to the family and culture. Unfortunately, the baby is aborted in order to keep the pregnancy a secret and avoid embarrassment to the parents, neighbors, or the family of the pregnant woman. So quite often, parents will pressure a pregnant mother to get an abortion out of just the embarrassment it could cause to the family. So step up. If you are the grandchild of a fetus, step up. Support your daughter and help her through this difficult time. Sadly, I've had personal experience of a family member being pressured to abort her baby, which caused untold trauma and grief, not only for the mother, but me personally. And I named the baby Ryan. May he rest in peace. Name your baby if you've had an abortion. Give an identity to your baby. Abortion causes extreme regret and guilt. 90% of the 1.5 million abortions performed each year in the United States occurs in the first trimester of pregnancy. Abortion providers administer or prescribe a medication that acts like a poison. So when you take the abortion pill, you're taking poison to poison your baby. And this causes a miscarriage, and many women are absolutely horrified when they miscarry in a toilet and they see their infant in the toilet that they aborted through taking an abortion pill. Also, in other methods of abortion, a suction tube is used to suck the baby and dismember the baby. Right here you can see a dismembered baby. That one was probably done by forceps. The abortion provider sucks the baby parts out of the uterus, dismembers the baby in the uterus, sucks out the baby parts, and then they have to put the parts of the baby in a pan to confirm that they didn't leave an arm or a leg in the uterus of the mother. And many times there's been cases where an arm or a leg or a part of the aborted baby was left there and got infected and caused death or extreme illness to the mother, requiring hospitalization. Abortion pills starve a child to death in the mother's womb. A first trimester abortion uses suction to tear the baby apart like a blender or vacuum cleaner. A second trimester abortion dismembers the limb and torso. So there you go. There's like second trimester right there. This is probably second trimester. Just pulls the abortion abortionist just pulls the arms and legs and head and body apart of the baby. And there's been ultrasounds, one called The Silent Scream, an early film of the baby trying to get away from the suction tube in the womb of the mother. Now this is horrible. The abortionist actually uses ultrasound not to show the mother before the abortion that the baby is a human alive in her womb, but uses the ultrasound to assist in pulling off the arms and legs and dismembering the body in the uterus. That's what they use the ultrasound for at, let's say, a Planned Parenthood, for example. Abortion, it's not health care. Now, there's all these fancy words to sanitize an abortion. Like I heard on TV the other day, a reporter asked Steve Hilton what his position on abortion was, and the reporter used this word, reproductive freedom. Okay, that's just sanitizing the real act of abortion. The real act of abortion, or having an abortion, or reproductive freedom should be defined as the right to kill an innocent life. Okay, the freedom to kill an innocent life. True health care. They say abortion is health care, for mother's health care, right? Well, real health care, it saves lives. Health care saves lives, doesn't destroy and kill life. That's real health care. You're preserving life, helping life, not ending life. The early film I mentioned just a minute ago, The Silent Scream, showed the abortion procedure, and it showed the baby trying to evade the suction tube before being killed. I recommend that you watch the movie Unplanned. A former employee of Planned Parenthood had a change of heart after working for Planned Parenthood and seeing how it was just a business, like to make sales quotas, not really providing real care for a mother in a bad circumstance. It's just done through a profit motive, like they have to get sales up, like they're not doing enough abortions. Remember, it's a business. In the later stages of pregnancy called dilation, there's an abortion procedure. In the later stages of pregnancy, there's an abortion procedure called dilation and extraction. The doctor, guided by ultrasound, inserts a grasping forceps. It's like a tong, right? He inserts a grasping forceps through the cervix into the uterus to grab the baby, like to hold the baby. Then the doctor grips a part of the baby and pulls a part of the baby out of the uterus, out of the cervix, an arm, a leg, and just rips and just yanks that baby that can feel pain. There's no sedatives or painkiller given to the baby. This is absolutely horrific and barbaric, this procedure to this baby. Well, the baby is alive and can feel pain. Can you imagine the baby without an arm or a leg in the uterus? Just, oh my gosh, just feeling that excruciating pain of being dismembered alive with no no painkiller. The doctor continues this barbaric procedure, dilation and extraction, piece by piece, until all the parts of the baby can be put into a pan. The process of dismembering the baby in order to remove the baby is a barbaric procedure. No painkiller is given to the baby, who we know now scientifically and medically can feel the pain. Abortion is a very emotional issue to many women due to the fact millions of women are post-abortive. It is estimated that 1 in every 3 women by the age of 45 have had at least one abortion in the United States. Staggering statistic. 1 out of every 3 women. The reality of abortion can cause women to have deep feelings of regret, guilt, and shame. And there is help for you. Remember, I gave you the phone number, area code 877-398-7734, or go to optionsforpregnancy.com, or contact the Diocese of Orange, the Catholic Church, the Diocese of Orange. Counseling and forgiveness is available. I would like to reiterate that the Catholic Church has programs for post-abortive women who need help to find healing, forgiveness, and hope. Having an abortion does not stop a person from coming into existence. It fatally takes a person out of existence. Here's another question. Is a fetus or embryo a human being? The answer is yes, since the fetus or embryo has its own unique DNA. If we discovered, for example, a little embryo, okay, if we found a little embryo, let's say on the moon or Mars, we would say we found life. If we found a clump of cells, for example, on Mars or the moon, we would say that we have found life. If the unborn fetus is human before it is born, it will continue to be human after it's born. So it doesn't matter whether you're inside or outside the womb. The baby's still human. What species is the baby? It's part of the human species. A fetus or embryo is not a parasite. By definition, a parasite is a different species that's feeding on a different species. An embryo or fetus is of the same species of the mother, so it is not a parasite. That's an unscientific argument. We would not say a 1-year-old baby, for example, is not human because a 1-year-old baby is not fully developed. And also, a baby that's born cannot survive without the mother or without assistance. If you left that baby to itself, the baby would die until perhaps several years old. So the baby's still dependent on the mother, whether the baby is inside the womb or outside the womb. Unborn or infants that are born need help, just like a fetus inside the womb needs assistance. It's the same thing. How do we know that unborn fetuses or preborn fetuses are human from a biological scientific analysis? Well, we can start by observing that the preborn baby is alive. The unborn child's heart begins to beat at 3 weeks old after conception. Being alive doesn't make something human because trees and bacteria are alive. What makes a baby human is because of its human DNA, which results from the union of 2 members of the human species. Some pro-choice advocates will say a fetus is not human since it has not been born. Well, what does the word fetus mean? The word fetus is a Latin word that means young one. The word fetus, by definition, means an offspring of a human. That's the definition of a fetus, an offspring of a human. Look it up. What is the definition of a fetus? A fetus is an offspring of a human. The word fetus is a word that designates a stage in a baby's development. Remember, zygote, embryo, fetus, newborn, infant, adolescent, middle age, adult, senior citizen. It's all stages in our development. After a baby is born, it is referred to as an infant. There's stages of development: zygote, embryo, fetus, infant, adolescent, young adult, middle age, and senior. Saying a child is not human because it is not fully developed, if true, would mean that even teenagers are not human beings because they're not fully developed. You can't use the argument that a fetus is not human because it's not fully developed. An infant's not fully developed. A teenager is not fully developed. Unborn babies or fetuses are whole human organisms which, biologically speaking, are not part of a woman's body. A fetus or embryo has a separate heart and brain and a separate set of DNA. An unborn baby, if given time, nutrition, and a proper environment, will develop into a mature human being. Every time a sperm and ovum unite, a new being will continue to live until full adulthood, unless its death is inflicted by another. That fetus will continue to live unless aborted, unless killed by another. The fact that an unborn child is a human organism is not disputed against scientists and philosophers. Remember, I Googled, is a fetus a human being? It's not disputed by science. The standard medical text, which you get in medical school, called Human Embryology and Teratology, states, quote, although human life is a continuous process, fertilization or conception is a critical landmark because ordinary circumstances, a new genetically distinct human organism is thereby formed. In recent years, modern medicine has revealed the truth about unborn babies, overwhelmingly confirming that an unborn baby is human. Ask Google or AI. Is a fetus a parasite? I mentioned that argument earlier. No. The argument is common among pro-choice college-age women, in a lot of cases, who claim to be scientists or educated. That's not scientific or educated, that argument. Preborn babies or fetuses are not parasites according to the dictionary. A fetus has to be a different species to qualify as a parasite. Babies are humans, not another species. A parasite, by definition, has to be another species. What species is an embryo or a fetus? What's the answer? The human species. Fetuses and embryos are humans. They're part of the human species, not parasites. How can a fetus have rights? Well, baby fetuses at 8 weeks already have a sense of touch, and even though the baby cannot survive on its own, which is an argument, it's not viable, they, like handicapped people, still are people and have a right to live. What makes a fetus human is that it belongs to the human species. Personhood applies to all humans who are of our kind, who are of our species, including fetuses and humans, as well as people who have lost the ability to be rational, such as the disabled. Pro-choice advocates say a person is only someone who can survive outside the womb or is viable. This argument that people are only those who can survive outside the womb is also not a good argument. Why? Well, even babies who are born and are outside the womb still need to be taken care of in order to survive, whether you're inside or outside the womb. An infant needs help, just like a fetus does, in order to survive. Also, there's many babies, thanks to modern science and medicine, babies being born premature and have survived, and it would tell you that they are people too. Also, there are people too who have actually survived from being aborted. In one case, it was a mother that had twins, and her brother was aborted, and the doctor didn't know that there were twins, so the mother felt something a few weeks later and ended up choosing to have her daughter, and that person is now a beautiful woman, and she says, I want to speak for all those that don't have a voice, that I want to live, I deserve to live, and that I have a right to live. Pro-choice gradualists argue that a fetus gradually becomes human, and a smaller or less developed embryo is not a person until the embryo develops into a fully developed fetus, that it's not human until it's fully developed, who then becomes more and more human until it is born. And then it's suddenly, the baby's or the fetus is suddenly born, and all of a sudden, with the breath of fresh air, now I'm human. No, no, no. If you take that logic seriously, you'd have to include infants, adolescents, and teenagers, since they are not fully developed humans as well. The fact is, embryos and fetuses are human and are part of the human species and are alive and have personalities. Play that tape through. Once that baby's born, think of that human being. We are all here because our mothers said yes and had us. Thank you, Mama. Simply because a baby is not wanted does not make it less human than other babies that are wanted. The argument that a woman should have the right to her own body has been smashed by our government, for example, forcing COVID vaccinations on our own bodies. Remember that? Okay, and then also regulations warning women that in bars that you shouldn't smoke, shouldn't drink, and putting all these restrictions, right? And there's the government regulates what we can do to our own bodies. You can't take certain psychedelic drugs, you can't take cocaine, you can't shoot heroin or take illicit drugs. The government governs our bodies. There's lots of laws that govern our bodies. We don't have the right to choose to do certain things because it can affect our health or the health of someone else. Drunk drivers and murderers have been charged with double murders when killing pregnant women as well. If the right over our bodies is a right, how is it that the government or state can ban bodily acts like the use of narcotic drugs or public nudity? You can't just take off your clothes and run down the street, okay? The government regulates what you do with your own body. You can't do perverted things in public. You could be thrown in jail for that. Public nudity, lewd acts. The government has the right to regulate what we do with our own bodies in certain cases. It is estimated in the U.S. alone, 1.5 million babies are aborted each year and 50 million worldwide. This has become a problem. Here's the problem, because not enough children are being born to sustain our aging population. 3 adults are needed to work in order to support one person's Social Security and other social programs for the elderly and handicapped. Here's a disaster in China. When you violate the natural law, okay? They had a one child per family law for many years in China. And in the Chinese culture, the parents only wanted male children. So as a result of this, they have millions of Chinese men who or of marrying age, that there's not enough women in China for them to marry. So they've got a big problem in China. There's not enough females in China as the result of abortion laws in China, the one child per family law. It's an absolute disaster. Pro-abortion supporters often use rape to say abortion should be illegal. Rape is traumatic to the woman because it is violence to an innocent person. Aborting the baby in many cases adds to the trauma a woman experiences. So it actually does not help the woman. In many cases, the rape victim that's going through enough problems gives more emotional damage, okay, by having the trauma of losing their aborted child, even though the rape was traumatic. Now, the rapist should be punished severely, but my other friend named Steve, his mother was raped, and his mother chose to have his sister, even though she was conceived in rape. And now his sister's an adult, she's a wife, she's a mother, and living a great life. So killing the innocent baby is not the answer. You know, two wrongs don't make a right. So the baby's innocent. So why make the baby the scapegoat and punish the innocent baby as the result of a crime of a rapist? We need to provide counseling and support. It's so difficult. You know, prayer, we need a lot of support, but we want to spare the baby of a death sentence. Punishment should always be directed at the rapist, not the innocent baby. Support and counseling should always be given to the innocent mother. Here's another question. If abortion was illegal, wouldn't women be forced to get abortions in unsafe back alleys? That's another objection. Oh, we're going to have back alley abortions again. Well, the fact is, in 1972, before Roe v. Wade came around, only 39 people died from illegal abortions in 1972. In 1972, the same year, actually 24 women died from legal abortions. So almost as many women died from legal abortions as illegal abortions. And remember, Alexis Arguello, she died after having an abortion at a Planned Parenthood. They don't talk about that, but there are many cases of women dying as a result of having an abortion. Abortion is dangerous for the mother, whether the abortion is legal or illegal. Pro-life supporters are often attacked at college campuses and other public places, verbal and physical abuse. The violence and abuse directed at those who promote life is proof that abortion is a violent act. And we always are in favor of peace, never violence. We just want to have a calm conversation and not hurt one another. We're here to promote love. Earlier this year in Mexico, during the International Women's Day in Mexico on March 8th, earlier this year, radical progressive feminists, masked feminist women in Mexico went and attacked and vandalized Catholic churches in Mexico. The malice and hatred towards believers who believe that life is precious. Moral ethics taught by the Catholic Church is under attack because it teaches the truth for a healthy society and world. I had to open my mind and why does the church teach that? Find out why and have just an open mind and just listen and it'll make sense. Killing innocent babies is never the answer. Abortion has become birth control for many women and irresponsible fathers, and premarital sex is usually the problem. See, the church teaches abstinence. In the Bible, it talks about fornication being a deadly sin. And that's why the church says to abstain and wait till you're married. So you have a child through a loving marital act. And if that was followed, and that was taught in public school, not just it's okay to have sex, here's how you get around it, here's some birth control, we would have less abortion and we would have happy families in many cases. Let's return to God's plan for marriage and the proper use of our God-given reproductive responsibilities. The sexual revolution has been a disaster, resulting in STDs, high divorce rates, broken marriage, lost souls, and millions of dead people, of dead babies who deserved to have a life and never got a chance to breathe a breath of fresh air. Should abortion be permitted for women who are living in difficult circumstances, such as poverty or in college with plans for a career? The answer respectfully is no. Remember, 9 months is not forever. Adoption. There's many cases of college women who had an unplanned pregnancy, chose life, got their degrees, and are very successful, whether they kept the child or put the child up for adoption. It's not the end of the world. Preborn children are as human as born children and should not ever be killed for a financial reason or inconvenience. The Catholic Church teaches that life begins at conception, not at birth, and that the baby receives its eternal soul at the moment of conception. In conclusion, here's a sample size. Here's a baby, okay? Hopefully you can see the baby, okay? That is about an 11 to 12-week-old baby. This 12-week-old preborn baby, its heart is beating. The brain waves can be recorded. He squints. He swallows and can make a fist. He has his own fingerprints and DNA. He or she is sensitive to heat, touch, light, and noise. He or she sucks him or her thumb. All body systems are working. This baby weighs about 1 ounce and is about 2 to 3 inches long and can fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. I strongly urge you to read Pope John Paul VI encyclical letter Humanae Vitae, which is prophetic, Humanae Vitae, which was issued on July 25th, 1968. Please read that. Let's pray for the end of this genocide and for all mothers who regret their abortions and mothers that maybe don't regret it. Let's pray for Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. More than 63 million lives have been lost since Roe v. Wade was passed originally in the United States alone. Let me close with this Bible verse that I read earlier from Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. God had a plan for us before he even created the world. He has a plan for each individual baby. So I just want to let you know you're loved. Call the Catholic Church or call if you need help. If you're pregnant, optionsforpregnancy.com or the phone number, area code 877-398-7734 if you're pregnant and you need help. God bless. Peace be with you.